Caddyshack is one of the most quotable classic comedies of all time, and the result of the Second City, Harvard Lampoon, SNL humor coming together and creating an unforgettable film that you probably won't see replicated ever again. I mean, despite the absolutely garbage sequel they tried to make, but that's beside the point. It was released in the summer of 1980, was the 17th highest grossing film of that year, and is still highly appraised. I mean, there's even restaurants that are Caddyshack themed, but what made it such a funny classic film? Well, there are a few ways to answer this. In the 1980s, Bill Murray's career was on its way up. He already had success in other big-budget movies and was fairly well known from Saturday Night Live. Chevy Chase was already a pretty big star at this point, along with Rodney Dangerfield, who basically dominated this comedy era with his stand-up. So right off the bat, Caddyshack was bound to be successful with just these names. So the plot, as you know, follows the story from the perspective of a young college-age caddy, Danny Noonan, who's still trying to figure out his life and is barely getting by with the money from his summer job at Bushwood Country Club. We meet other influential characters like Ty Webb, the rich golfer that Danny always caddies for, the club owner, Judge Smales, who is in charge of the caddy scholarships, and the extravagantly inconvenient speculative member that brings hell in the form of one-liners. And then there's also Bill Murray, who plays Carl Spackler, or the Cinderella Boy, who's in charge of exterminating the gophers on the course. But his plot only really makes sense at the very end of the story. Yeah, so pretty much that. So we have this setup of characters with very different motivations, goals, and dispositions. And the style of comedy in each character is distinguishable and very different. Like, there's little comedic consistency from character to character, but that's kind of the brilliance behind it. So we'll start with the Judge and Al Jervik. These are two extremely different characters to begin with, and bound for hilarious interactions. The Judge is very hot-headed, uncompromising, and unadventurous in demeanor, but he shows an almost Disney villain-like anger that he erupts whenever he's been pushed too far. And the person that pushes him is the man we know and love, Rodney Dangerfield. His character, Al Jervik, drops in at just the right times to cause chaos with his shocking one-liners that clearly upset the Judge and his club members. He kind of attempts to be like the cool old guy.
Well, the last time I saw a mouth like that, I had a hook in it.
But we see that it doesn't really matter because Jervik has an excessive amount of money, and for that, none of his actions have any consequences, which explains why he carries himself kind of like an unrestrained man-baby with his over-the-top outfits and musical golf bag, which I've seen in real life, and that's that's for a certain type of person, let's just say. Pretty much his character brings an immediate change to the traditional, rigid atmosphere of Bushwood and pretty much drives the Judge to the point of insanity. His one-liners are classic, hilarious, famously quoted, and in perfect Dangerfield fashion that makes you actually wonder if he's even playing a written character or literally just being himself on camera. So, with the fire and ice kind of chaos that these two bring, we see a heavy underscore with one of the SNL founding fathers, Chevy Chase. His character is deadpan in the most definitive sense. He's cynical, snarky, and instantly sees the flaws in some of the major plot events, and is able to see through kind of all the nonsense around him. He's characterized by his wit, ambiguity, and independence that Danny can't help but look up to, especially when Ty disguises his life advice as golf advice.
Good. Danny, this isn't Russia. Is this Russia? This isn't Russia, is it?
Nah.
I don't think so. I like you, Betty.
That's Denny, sir.
Danny, stop thinking. Let things happen and be the ball.
And finally, we talk about Cinderella Boy. Okay, first of all, who doesn't love Bill Murray? I still find it incredible that his screen time was entirely improvised on the spot, and he was only on set for like a week. He showcases a type of humor in this character that could have never been written, which is why it's so well known and so original. He portrays the groundskeeper, Carl Spackler, who's kind of an offbeat, half-witted loner that obsesses over exterminating the gophers on the course. We see some of the depictions through his physical comedy, like when he's consistently outsmarted by the gophers, misunderstanding obvious tasks, or just mumbling to himself. It's ironic how his relatively small extermination chore winds up being the concluding plot point that resolves the entire storyline. So we see the deadpan style of Chevy Chase, the slapstick humor of Bill Murray, and the shocking one-liners that Rodney Dangerfield delivers both on and off screen. These three characters and their tropes are the reason this movie is such a cult classic, and also why the humor works, especially when we're witnessing it through the lens of an unproblematic, typical teenage protagonist. It's the perfect story to satirize the environment of the lives at a wealthy country club. But I only really talked about the three main sources of comedy in this movie. There are several other tropes that I didn't mention before this, like the massive number of siblings Danny has, the spoiled grandchildren, or the supermodel granddaughter of the judge, which also I genuinely don't think her character was developed that well. She's really just the scandalous granddaughter of the judge, and her only purpose in the movie is to add to the chaos by sleeping around with a few of the characters, and yeah, that's really the extent of the female lead here, but it was written in the 70s, so I guess that kind of explains it. And of course, the movie has its flaws and its plot holes. I mean, there's kind of weird stuff that goes on and scenes that just feel, I guess, out of place, but it's still a cinematic classic nonetheless, and if I'm being honest here, it's my favorite movie of all time. But maybe I'm biased because I did caddy for 5 years. Either way, let me know what you thought about the breakdown. Thank you for watching.